Let's pick things up there with Stuart McGuigan, Chief Information Officer at the Department of State, Kelly O'Connor, Digital Service Expert at the Department of Veterans Affairs, Drew Myklegard, Executive Director of Demand Management at VA, and Rob Dwyer, Principal and Technology Leader for the Federal Advisory Practice at KPMG. Thanks all very much for joining me. Stuart, I want to start with you because you're relatively new to the government. Yes. You came in from the private sector. What did you want to learn first about the State Department's digital posture and then decide where you wanted to move forward for set priorities?
I think the most important thing is to understand the organization's mission. And you know, when I look around, we've got all the tools. We have cloud capabilities, we have mobile tools, we're gathering data, we're using data and analytic capabilities that you know, I think are unrivaled. But really understanding the mission, because there's a lot of things you could do, but figuring out what do you do first to pull forward value the fastest you can. I think that's what I'm paying attention to, is this strong, articulated sense of mission.
How did you go about doing that? I imagine you didn't just stay within the technology organization. You wanted to go literally all over the globe, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So I spent a lot of time meeting with all of the leadership in the State Department. And you know, as we're formulating our next generation technology strategy, I think any good technology strategy doesn't use any technical words for the first couple pages. It's all about what's going to be different. What do you need to be able to do tomorrow that you can't do today, and then backing into the technology capabilities that are needed to do that. And so, you know, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of support for leadership to do that.
Kelly, your background before coming to VA is in the same area, mission delivery, and helping people understand what it is they need to do, and then thinking about how to do it. How did you apply that lens at VA and the work that you're doing now on digital transformation?
Yeah, thanks, Francis. So I'm really excited to talk about two specific things we're doing that answer that question. The first is shifting VA in terms of how we work in the culture from a traditional project management mindset to more of a modern digital product management mindset. So rather than just focusing on delivering on time and on budget, which is really important, if you don't deliver the right thing, who cares?
Yes.
So VA is being very proactive in building an in-house team of people who understand product management, human-centered design, agile, so we can deliver the right things to our users. And then the second thing I'm super excited to talk about today is helping our customers adopt software as a service, or SaaS. So this is how we're going to enable our customers to tap into the innovative and emerging technologies out there.
So both of those things are important. In the context of mission delivery, what difference will the veteran see? What will he or she be able to do better or do faster or whatever as a result of both of them? I know it doesn't matter to the vet, but it matters to them that they receive the services better.
Everything.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to apply for education benefits. They already can, right? Apply for education benefits, apply for health care, check the status of their claim. Then indirectly, if we equip our doctors and VA providers with these innovative technologies, they'll be able to provide better health care services. So everybody wins.
Drew, you're nodding enthusiastically as she's talking about the work that she's doing. How is what is happening overall at VA in digital transformation impacting you, and what are you doing to contribute to it?
Great question. So I lead the front door to IT. So if you want something built, you come through my shop first. And on our digital transformation path, we keep as our North Star customer service. And we want a customer service experience similar to what a veteran would receive in the commercial sector. And so we're doing that, or we saw a couple of different pockets within VA and across the federal government where the great products were being built, DevOps was occurring, and we wanted to institutionalize it. So we did two things. One, Kelly talked a little bit about the products. So we've established product line management across all of the products that we're doing. The second thing, our CIO set up a new office around DevOps. So previously we had our development team, and they would pass over the app to the ops team, and they would maintain it. So Bill James was set as head of DevOps and has both of them under him now. So we're culturally bringing people together. In some cases, we're even physically. So we'll have in the same room right now, we're working on an app, digital DST, decision support tool to support the Mission Act. And in the room every day in our scrums are our head of ITOPS, or our ops division, our head of our development division, and then different key leads from security.
Rob, does this sound like what you're hearing as you're going out and working with customers across the government, or are we hearing kind of people who are on the edge of this?
Absolutely, and so we are privileged to be able to support your panelists and their colleagues in government usually acquiring new business capabilities, but supported in the right technology. So sort of a digital transformation in that sense would be starting with the end user, and it's not always a citizen. It could be a mortgage officer, it could be a veteran, it could be a student, and what is that experience that they need to have, and then how do you modernize that process? How do you support it in the cloud or web-based? How do you use the data that's produced by that process and continually inform the ongoing process? And then how do you get there and deploy these new business capabilities over time in a constantly shifting environment with new policy mandates, shifts in funding, things like that. So that's absolutely what we're involved in every day.
And Stuart, there's a sense that the federal government is always behind the private sector, being here so freshly from the private sector. What are people in government maybe not yet doing, now that you've had a chance to kind of get your feet wet, see what your peers are doing across government, that people are doing or have been doing in the private sector for a while? You know,
I think we've been talking about two-speed IT in the commercial space for a long time, and I think that applies in the government sector as well. One of the things that I was pleasantly surprised about was the speed with which the team reacts to any situation. And you might expect that the State Department gets confronted with a lot of rapidly emerging situations. So it's in the DNA to respond quickly. I think part of our job as leaders is to create the environment in which they can respond, that they have the tools, they have the authorizations, they have the funding and the budget. But I don't see any reason why the State Department can't operate at the speed of policy. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I also was pleased to hear coming from healthcare, where you have evidence-based medicine, is evidence-based policy. And so one of the things we're doing is looking at data and saying, can we have an evidence-based technology strategy and customize the configuration of tools to the specific needs of the different posts we have? We have over 270 posts in over 190 countries, and no two are alike, but there are some common themes, and can we organize our technology to support them better?
And you have the same situation at the Department of Veterans Affairs, because you have contacts with people in a whole bunch, I think it's 176 healthcare facilities across the country, plus other providers. So you have an opportunity to be in kind of the same situation as Stuart, it sounds like.
Yeah, so 2,500. We have 170-some major medical centers, but we have 2,500 medical facilities.
Oh, wow.
And then we also have our benefits regional office. So we're coming into contact with veterans. I think one of the key things that to stay in touch with the veterans, we do a couple of things differently that we didn't do before. One of them is that we send out teams doing user research. And that like Stuart was talking about, it's very much fact-based, evidence-based, like what features should we be building in the next sprint cycles for these different products. And the more that we drive towards that, the quicker that we're able to deliver value, but also the features are richer for the veterans and are more personalized.
And just to add to that, you started out with talking about the private sector. I think across government, you'll see pockets of innovation at all of our agencies, right? That's exciting. But what I think is different at VA is this institutional push and this investment. So leaders like Bill James and our CIO are not just saying, oh, okay, yes, you can go do that and go get a waiver and work in a rogue kind of way. They're saying, we're going to make an investment, we're going to train our workforce, we're going to recruit for the right skill sets, and we're actually going to work differently. And they're pushing that. So I think it's a really exciting time to work at VA. It's
one thing to push it, it's another thing to see people actually take up that challenge and do it. What is your sense of what's happening culturally at VA to make sure that it's not just a top-down approach, that people are really getting it at the grassroots?
I mean, I can start with, we've actually changed our release process. So if you hear Mark Schwartz talk about government system development life cycles, it's an inherent blocker, right? So what Bill has done is developed a DevOps release process that teams can opt into. You have to meet some prerequisites, and so we're delivering using this anti-Big Bang approach, right? So we put out a small minimum viable product, teams can opt in, and we're going to learn as we go. But I think that's a really cool thing.
So Rob, I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, that's really the question at hand. Are we to the point yet where agencies understand that a waterfall, Big Bang type approach is probably not going to give them the result that they want. I mean, we've seen plenty of challenges with that over the years, but still agencies kept doing it.
Right.
And I wonder if you think we're done kind of banging our heads against the wall.
Well, certainly for specific types of systems. I think for financial systems, those days are over. I think for ERPs, I mean, there's still some very large ERP implementations, but even but there's other systems and sort of cuff systems that I think adhere to kind of more modern deployment models. And I think even at agencies that aren't all the way there, they still can take advantage of lots of the benefits of agile development within sort of the overall structure of their SDLC. So it might not be pure waterfall, so to speak, but it's sort of agile within a waterfall. And like, you know, like what we always say is, you know, don't build one $200 million system, build 100 $2 million systems, and that way you can deploy business functionality over time, you can learn, and it reduces the risk of failure, and it's just a lot more realistic.
Stuart?
I think that's a great point. We need long-term planning. And I think one of the myths about Agile is that it's the Wild West. And it actually requires more discipline. It requires more from your architects. It requires more thought about the strategy. So if we can fund long-term strategies, we can create Agile teams within that strategy. And the best thing from my perspective about Agile versus Waterfall is you quickly learn what you got wrong. Whereas if you're building a system for 2 or 3 years, it's really tough to find out that half of what you did isn't needed anymore.
Right.
Whereas in Agile, if you have a 2-week sprint, worst case, you lost 2 weeks, and you can adjust. So it aligns much better with the way people think and the way people work.
We just have a couple of minutes left, and it strikes me that the other important thing to consider is the way that a system like that interacts with some of the new technologies that are coming online very quickly, and then we're moving to something else very quickly. Robotic process automation strikes me as the most important one because I think it's the one that agencies are able to make the most use of, but there are others too. Anybody want to talk about what that intersection looks like? Rob and then Drew?
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
So I think we're seeing a lot of employment in RPA. I mean, there's a lot of, I think, pent-up demand because there's still a lot of highly manual processes within government. But I mean, I think the thing that we all need to be careful of with RPA is you can fix and optimize part of a process, and that's just going to move a backlog into the next part of the process. So even there, it still needs to be done with an overarching plan and not sort of used as an excuse to not modernize, because you still have to look at that process from an end-to-end perspective, or you're just going to create queues and backlogs in other areas that, you know, you solved in one area and created a problem somewhere else.
Drew?
Yeah, we're really excited about RPA for a couple of reasons. One is we push innovation to the perimeter as much as we can. And a lot of people out in the field, just to step back a little bit, initially when people hear about robotics, they think of like a Tesla plant where you don't see any people on the factory line and the cars are getting created, or an Amazon warehouse where like my package is delivered. But this is a little bit different. For us, we're able to take our legacy systems, and we know that there are inefficient steps because they were built 20, 30 years ago, and maybe you have to go through 7 screens to put in, you know, fill out 1 field in each one, and tough workflows. So we're seeing RPA as applicable to like limiting that work around that business process re-engineering without going back and changing the underlying systems while we get to work on those other apps. So for us, it's a real lifeline.
We have about 30 seconds left. I want to go back to something that you said, Stuart, and that is this overall architecture still being necessary. How prescriptive does that either need to be or should it be when you're working in a Scrum environment?
It should be very prescriptive, but have lots of options. So you should have different flavors of technology that are purpose-built for the application. So if you're doing heavy workflow, you need a heavy workflow engine. But if you have a lightweight workflow, you just need better collaboration, then you have to have that tool. So it's never one size fits all, but it shouldn't be every size in the catalog.
Stuart, Kelly, and Drew, and Rob, thanks all very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.